Hello my loves, welcome back. We are at my PC today. We're in a slightly different setup, and that is because we're doing another tier ranking. I have so far this year nearly read as many books as I read in total for the whole of last year. I think I read like 40-ish books last year, and I've already read 39 this year. So I thought probably good to do a mid-year tier ranking now, because otherwise the end of year one is going to be very, very long if I continue going the way I have. We will still rank every book that I've read at the end of the year, but we'll already have some of it done. Some of those might move around based on other things I read, but I wanted to get started. Also, I just really love tier ranking things. I find it so enjoyable, so fun, so I wanted to do it as soon as possible. This is what we're starting with. Apparently this is 39 books. It doesn't look like 39 books, but apparently it is. We're doing tier list slightly different this year. If you didn't see my end of year one last year, I'll link it somewhere. Six of Crows is still always going to be the top tier, and if you're new here, that's because Six of Crows is my metric for whether I rank a book 5 stars or not. If I enjoyed it as much as Six of Crows, I will probably rate that book 5 stars. So Six of Crows is my like S tier rank. Then we have A Nice Day Out, which basically are books that I enjoyed, were good, but they might not necessarily like stay with me or have as much impact on me or quite be Six of Crows level, essentially. Just Okay is kind of your 3-starers. I don't really tier rank the same way that I do star ratings, so I'm not solely going to base it on that, but that is the best way to explain it. Just Okay is, it was alright, I somewhat enjoyed it, but I probably wouldn't come back to it or particularly recommend it unless to like specific people, I suppose. Not For Me Babes is books that I can objectively see were maybe okay to some people, but just not for me. They are not my cup of tea. I did not enjoy them, and I will not be recommending them. In the Bin is just books that I think are terrible that I really did not enjoy. I was going to say potentially DNF'd, but I don't think there's any DNFs on this list actually. I think I finished every single one of these books. Let's just get started, because I have been looking forward to doing this for months. A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. I did not particularly enjoy this book. I thought it was quite slow. I thought the characters were a bit shit, and I thought the romance was unrealistic. However, I can see why other people would like it. It's a witchy romance with very, very light enemies to lovers. Not really. And it's quite lighthearted. I felt quite confident in saying that's just not for me, babes. It was not enjoyable for my personal taste, but I can see why other people would like it. Babel, I never remember how you're supposed to say it, and I've seen people get annoyed at people mispronouncing it, so I'm sorry. This is Six of Crows. I don't even need to think about that. That was such a good book. I don't know why I put off reading it for so long. I was quite intimidated by it, I think is the main thing. But if you too have been intimidated by it and have been put off reading it because of that, don't worry. It is a bit intimidating. There's like footnotes and stuff, but 1, you don't have to read those if you don't want to, but 2, they're really interesting, and the actual story itself is quite easy to read. The magic is kind of confusing and I don't get it, but I don't think you really need to get it to still enjoy the story. This was an immediate 5 stars, and I think I knew that quite early on in reading it, that it was going to be a 5 stars, so that's easy. Six of Crows. Carmilla is my first difficult one. My problem with this is that it was quite short. I actually enjoyed the story. I just wish that the story had been a little bit longer and we'd got to see more of these characters, because I actually really did like Carmilla as a character. So for me, it's between Just Okay and A Nice Day Out. At the moment, I'm leaning towards Just Okay, because I honestly haven't really thought about it since. It didn't really leave a mark on me, you know, which is a shame because I was expecting it to, but it didn't. So that might move around. That's another thing with these lists. Why is that in there? I have not read that book. I don't know why this book's in here. I haven't read Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I've added that in by mistake. Ignore this. I don't know how to delete it. It's just going to stay there, but I have not read that book. Did I finish my thoughts on Carmilla? I don't remember. We're going to move on. Cemetery Boys was a very good book. I really, really enjoyed this book. I do feel like it would have been better if I'd read it like autumn, but this is immediately A Nice Day Out. Unfortunately, I don't think it's quite Six of Crows, but that doesn't mean it wasn't good. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. It was very sweet. I cried. I got secondhand embarrassment, anger, so many emotions. For quite a short standalone book, I was quite impressed by. I definitely want to read more by that author because I really enjoyed it. Frankenstein, I feel like I read ages ago. Like, I don't even feel like I read this year, but apparently I did. Frankenstein was not my favorite. I was quite disappointed by it, actually, because I was expecting to really enjoy it, but I just found Frankenstein as a character insufferable, and he's the main part of it. So I was just quite annoyed a lot of the time. My gut is it was just okay. That might move, but my gut is that it's just okay. Exit West. You may have seen my rant about this book, because I did at some point. It's going in the bin. I'm really sorry, because I know a lot of people really, really like this book, and it generally gets quite good reviews. I just really hated it. I hated everything about it. The writing style was the most irritating thing I have ever come across in my life. It was horrific, in my opinion. I felt like none of the characters really had any depth. They literally just felt like words on a page, which is not what you want from a book. You want to connect with these characters and feel like they are actually real people, and they did not, to me anyway. They felt very shallow. The story just didn't really make sense to me. I just didn't enjoy anything about this book, so I'm sorry, because I know a lot of people really like it, but I'm putting it in the bin. Let's move on. Enchanted to Meet You. Oh, how did I feel about this book? I don't really remember this book very well, honestly. I think I kind of liked it. My thought is it was just okay. It was one of those like witchy romances that are quite easy to read, but aren't really too serious, and they're not the best. Oh, I do remember this book. It was the one with the whole "in every generation a slayer is born" moment. I somewhat enjoyed it. It was okay. I feel a sense of loyalty towards Meg Cabot because she wrote one of my favorite teenage books, but maybe it was a nice day. No, it wasn't a nice day out. It was just okay. Dark Rise, I'm on the fence about. I'm feeling like it's a nice day out, because I enjoyed it, and I know some people thought it was quite boring, and there wasn't really much character development. I personally loved all the characters, and it was very YA, but I liked that it wasn't romantasy, because I feel like every fantasy book at the moment that like gets popular or is recommended ends up being romantasy, and I just don't like romantasy. I don't like it. It's not for me. So I liked this because it wasn't that. It was a bit slower. It did feel like I probably would have loved it if I'd read it in like 2012 maybe, but I still really quite liked it, and it was just a nice change. I don't think it's quite Six of Crows level. I still haven't got around to reading the next book. I know there is another one, and then there's a third one coming out, I think maybe this year or next year. I can't remember. For whatever reason, I haven't got around to reading the second one. If it was Six of Crows level, I would have already read the next one. I would have wanted to know and have got into it straight away, but I didn't, which makes me think it's just a nice day out. Crime and Punishment, we all know, if you've been here before, we know this is Six of Crows. This potentially, I've considered, it's maybe the new metric for if something's 5 stars or not. I think I never thought a book would become above Six of Crows. I don't think I could quite say Crime and Punishment has come above it, but they're definitely like on an even level. I put off reading that book for so long. I was so intimidated by it. I thought I wasn't going to be able to understand it, that I was going to feel stupid. It was surprisingly easy to read. If you don't like living in a depressed man's head for 600 pages, you might not enjoy it, but I did really enjoy it. So that's easily Six of Crows. I loved that book so much. Now we've got 3 Filthy Rich Vampire books in a row, and then the other one's here for some reason. I'm just gonna do them all together because I feel quite similarly about all of these. I really enjoyed this series. It was not good. It was not a good series. There were so many plot holes. The writing wasn't the best. Sometimes conversations just didn't make sense, but it was still really enjoyable. This was romantasy, I suppose, like vampire romance fantasy. I really enjoyed it. I devoured these books in like 3-4 days because I just wanted to keep reading them, and they were very easy to read, like very easy to read. So Filthy Rich Vampire, the first one, the one that hooked me, that got me in, would be A Very Nice Day Out. Yeah, it's the first one in the series. It got me hooked. I was enjoying it. So that was A Nice Day Out. Second Right, which is the second book in the series. Actually, the rest of these are going to be really difficult for me to rank because I can't really differentiate them in my head because I did read them all in such a short period of time. But Second Rope was also a nice day out. If I'm remembering correctly what happened, I don't really remember very well, but I know that I did enjoy it. I also know that I rated the first 3 books 4 stars and the last one 3 stars. However, and this is where ranking differs to ratings, I think 3 Queens and For Eternity would both go in just okay. I still enjoyed them because I liked this series and I liked being in the world. However, especially the last one, it just felt like things were very, very rushed, and there were things that were like opened that then weren't closed, and just too much had started happening in this book that then they weren't able to close it in this book. Those 2, I think, are where I started to be like, okay, I'm quite actually glad this series is ending now, because otherwise I don't really know how I would feel about this continuing. The first 2 definitely good. These 2 like good as well. I still enjoyed them, but just they started to fall off a little bit there. Legends and Lattes. At this point, I read this months ago. I think I read this in like January or February, so I don't really remember it too well. It was good though. It was cozy. I liked the characters a lot, actually. I need to read Bookshops and Bone Dust. Is that a continuation of the story, or is that different people? I actually have no idea. But I do need to read that because it was very cozy. In fact, I thought there was too much plot in this book. I didn't like the plot. I liked the coziness of it and just wanted to see the characters in their little coffee shop. I think this is a nice day out. It was enjoyable, cozy, comforting, but it wasn't something I'm going to think about a lot afterwards. Jekyll and Hyde, I'm sorry, but this is going in the bin. I really did not enjoy this book in the slightest. Again, I think this was a problem with the narrator. I did not like them. I also just did not like the way this book was like written, and I don't mean writing style, I mean like the choice of how the story was told was odd to me, and I didn't like it. Why was it this random lawyer going around and not really getting much of the story, and then suddenly the entire story is told at the end in one chapter in a letter by Jekyll? Like, why? It just made no sense to me. That could work if it had been a bit longer. You'd had more like of the mysterious, creepy vibes, but I don't know if this is just because like at this point everyone knows the story of Jekyll and Hyde, so you already know what the answer is and what's happening. Maybe without knowing that, it might have been more enjoyable. You know, saying I didn't enjoy Frankenstein very much, I feel like that kind of storytelling would have made more sense, where it was actually from the beginning, like we're at the end at the beginning, you know, where Jekyll is telling lawyer man, I don't remember his name, everything that's happened, and we go through that story like that. I just feel like that would have worked better and been more interesting, and we would have found out more about Jekyll and how he actually did that. I was just very bored and very annoyed a lot of the time in this story, and it's not very long, so the fact that it got me that annoyed is quite impressive. But anyway, it's going in the bin. Another in the bin is Iron Flame. Very sorry, because I know these books are very popular. Well, I suppose they're controversially popular. I feel like you either love or hate this series, and I am sorry to say that I am someone who hates it. I have to say, I didn't mind Fourth Wing. I didn't think it was great, and it felt very immature to me, or juvenile perhaps, but I didn't hate it. Iron Flame, what the fuck happened in this book? It was awful. It was so bad. I will not be reading any more of that series. If you want my full thoughts on those books, I did do a full review on both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, so I'm not going to get into it, but safe to say I did not like those books. New Moan. This is difficult to tier rank. This is a Twilight parody book. There's 2 in here. Nightlight as well, which we'll get to in a minute. This is very difficult to tier rank because they're not good books and they're not supposed to be good books. I think New Moan was the one I didn't really like. Let me just remind myself, because one of them I liked more than the other one, but again, this was quite a while ago now, so I can't remember which way around it was. Yeah, so New Moan I actually rated 1 star, so clearly I did not like that one. I think I remember this was the longer one, and because it was longer, it lost all of the comedic element of it. It was too long. It wasn't funny anymore, like the commentary. It was just repetitive and like too over the top for the length of the book. I'm gonna say it's not for me, babes. Like, I don't even think I found this like funny, enjoyable, like knowing it's supposed to be shit. I'm just gonna do Nightlight while I'm here because it's very similar. This one was shorter, but it was more enjoyable. It was funnier. It was stupider. It was more bizarre and deviated more from the story. But I think it was more just piss takey. Whereas this one was trying to actually do a commentary on Twilight. And for me, it wasn't commenting on the right things. Like, the things it was moaning about sounded very petty and I'm not like other girls. Which is funny because it was taking the piss out of the I'm not like other girls thing. But I just don't think the commentary in it was particularly good. This one was silly. Didn't have as much commentary. It was more just stupid. But I did find it quite funny. So if you're looking for some Twilight parodies for whatever reason, skip out on Moan. It's too long. Nightlight is nice and short and it's stupid but kind of funny, so that would be my recommendation there. Salem's Lot, I read this more recently, so I feel like it should be fresher in my memory. I was quite mixed on this book to begin with because it was a little slow. It took me a while to get into, and I was quite confused for a lot of it because I couldn't remember. There were so many characters. It was difficult to remember who everyone was. But I did really quite enjoy it by the end. I liked the creepy, spooky vibes that weren't too scary. And I liked the old school vampires. So I think Salem's Lot was a nice day out. It was decent. It was enjoyable. And again, very different from the other types of vampire books that I have tended to be recommended or have read recently. It was a more enjoyable, more modern vampire take, with it still having the like creepy, scary, ugly vibes of old vampires, which I really enjoy. So yeah, that was a nice day out. Mortimer and Whitehouse gone fishing. I think this is the only there's 2 non-fiction books in here. I listened to this as an audiobook. It's just something to like listen to in the background because I thought it would be comforting and fun. It was. In case you're unaware, Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse are comedians in the UK, and they, after both having heart problems, started going fishing together, and there's now a TV show where they go fishing together, and it's just a very sweet, very comforting TV show, and this is their book. This was definitely a nice day out. It was a very nice day out. It was very sweet, very comforting. It did just sound like they were having a chat on the audiobook. I do also have the physical book that I would like to look through because I do think there were some parts of the audiobook that weren't in the book, like they were just having a chat at times. This did have a lot of actual technical fishing stuff in it. Like, there was a whole little mini guide on how to start fishing, and I have no intention of ever going fishing, and I feel like that's quite difficult to learn from an audiobook anyway. That part I kind of zoned out a little bit on, but the rest of it and just the general vibe of it I did really enjoy. Which one is this? I'm sorry. This is Notes from the Underground. Alright, Notes from the Underground I did enjoy, I think. I feel like I was a little bit confused in that as well. But I did enjoy it. Definitely wasn't as much as Crime and Punishment. My feelings are A Nice Day Out. So the other short one in here, and they were like in the same book, was The Double. I feel like I liked Notes from the Underground more than The Double. Notes from the Underground was like darker and slightly more depressing. The Double was a bit insane. The more I think about The Double though, actually, the more I think I did really enjoy it. At the end I was just like, what the fuck is happening? And I like a book that does that, to be fair. I had to Google it because I was a bit confused, but that might just be me being stupid. So actually I think both of them are A Nice Day Out. I was gonna say The Double was gonna be in just okay, but no, actually the more I think about that book, the more I think I did actually quite enjoy it. Potentially I did enjoy it more than that one, but I don't think either of them are going up here. So yeah, I'm gonna put both of them there. Letters to a Young Poet. I don't even need to think about this. As soon as I read this book, I knew immediately this was going to be one of the top books of the year. This is Six of Crows. Easily. Easy. This is fantastic. I think I've recommended this book quite a few times now on this channel. It's a collection of short letters from Raina to a young poet, as the title suggests, who's asking initially for writing advice, but it just kind of turned into life advice and general other commentary on things. I read it as someone who does like writing and was hoping maybe for some writing advice, and there was some in there, but most of the things that stuck with me more were the more like life things, and I feel like a lot of them in there are still very relevant, even though this is from quite a long time ago now. I really recommend that book to literally everyone. everyone. It changed my feelings about a lot of things, and I think about it often, and it does affect the way I respond to things, I think, a lot more. So it had quite a big impact on me, I think, which is why I feel like it was so good, and I would recommend everyone reads it. Changing pace, The Beautiful. I don't know if this is going in the bin or if it's just not for me, babes. That is where I'm sitting at the moment. This is a vampire book that I did not enjoy. The vampires were boring and a bit shit. The story was repetitive. The main character was annoying. The love interest was a wet blanket, but for some reason kept being described as the devil. So ridiculously slow, like nothing happens, and there's like 4 more books in the series. So I really did not enjoy it. I also really didn't like the writing style. That was the thing that immediately I didn't enjoy. My thought is it's going in the bin. It's going in the bin. I had to really push myself to finish this book. I don't know why I didn't just DNF it. Honestly, I'm still really struggling with DNFing books. So I think that's why, but realistically I could have quite happily DNF'd that and not cared. A strong female character. This is tricky because this is a memoir, and I always feel a bit strange about ranking or rating memoirs. This is by Fern Brady, a Scottish comedian who I very, very much like and find very funny. It's her memoir sort of reflecting on not just her late autism diagnosis, but also just her kind of life and struggles that she's had with mental health and stuff. It's really good. It is quite emotional. It did affect me a bit because a lot of it was very relatable, but it was really good. I just feel a bit weird about ranking memoirs, but I'm gonna do it. It's going in A Nice Day Out. Really, it wasn't A Nice Day Out. Really, it was emotional and at times a bit difficult to read, and yeah, made me think about things a bit too much at times. I suppose the thing with memoirs is if you don't know the person, you might not be necessarily as interested, but I would recommend checking out Fern Brady's comedy because she is very funny. And yeah, I really like her. Next is The Fall of the House of Usher. Now, this feels like a bit of a cop-out putting this in. It has a book on its own because it's, like 30 pages long. I read it just to be able to read another book, which we will get to in a minute. I read this in one sitting very quickly, and I feel like I do need to read it again because I don't think I really took it in very well. I think it needs maybe a reread. This had good creepy vibes as well. It is the first Edgar Allan Poe I have read. It was weird, short. Wish it had been a bit longer, but still enjoyable. But now I think I'm going to put it in just okay, but I think I do need to like look over it again to really like take in how I feel about it, because I did read it quite rushed and I wasn't like 100% concentrating, so that might be unfair. But this is why we're doing the mid-year one. When we come back at the end of the year, potentially I might shuffle some of these around as my opinions have changed and I've thought about things more. For now I'm putting it there though. I think that feels right. The Cloisters. Oh my god, this book fucking gripped me at the time. I absolutely loved this book when I was reading it. The more I think back on this book, the more I'm not actually sure if it's as good as I thought it was. I did really, really enjoy it. None of the characters in it are good. Oh, I was very shocked by things though. And I did like the mysterious vibes. And I did like that they were looking at tarot. So actually, yeah, I did really enjoy it. I don't think I did actually enjoy it as much as Six of Crows. However, I definitely did enjoy it more than just A Nice Day Out. So I feel like I kind of have to put it up there. I would say it was probably one of my favourite books that I've read so far this year. So it feels fair to be putting it up there with my other favourite books that I've read so far this year. The Mitford Secret. I don't really remember this book. This is like a murder mystery book with like a rich family, and it's from a series where I hadn't read any of the rest of the series, but I remember not really enjoying it. My initial thought is this is just not for me, babes. I have not really read a lot of murder mystery. I don't know if I just don't like the genre or if I just didn't like that particular book. I think it just wasn't for me. I was quite bored. It felt quite obvious and repetitive. I just got quite frustrated with the whole setup. And again, I don't know if all murder mysteries are like that, where it's like, oh my god, everyone's obviously hiding something, why are they being so obvious about it? Or if it was just that one that was like that. Things like that, like murder mysteries, thrillers, I don't tend to typically enjoy them because I do find a lot of them quite predictable. I think to an extent it is very, very difficult to do that well now when there's so many other books in those genres. You know, they're big genres, and probably every plot twist and reveal you can think of has already been done. So I do get it's probably quite hard to actually have that suspense and, you know, have that shock and surprise at the reveal, but that one in particular, I just found it quite frustrating. I didn't particularly like it. Love of my life, Lee Bardugo, and it feels strange. This happened last year as well. She's not going in Six of Crows. Listen, I really liked The Familiar. I did. I enjoyed it. It was good. But I was somewhat disappointed by it. It was not as good as I was expecting it to be. I was so excited because I love Lee Bardugo. I've enjoyed everything she's written, and it was historic fantasy. It's set in a time period that I very, very much enjoy typically. So I had very high hopes, and I was a little bit disappointed, honestly. I don't know what it was about it. It was just not what I was expecting, or if it was a bit slow. I did, as always with Lee, there was fantastic characters in it, which I think really held it up and made it better. It was still a nice day out. It was good. It just unfortunately did not match up to her previous work of Six of Crows for my personal enjoyment. It was still good. The Metamorphosis, that is Six of Crows. I freaking loved this book. I found it hilarious, and I don't think you're supposed to find it hilarious, but I found it very funny, bizarre, and again a book that I stopped reading it and I was just like, what is happening? What have I just read? What does all of this mean? I like books like that. I like books that make me think about them for a long time afterwards, and this one is one that, like, I don't know, it keeps coming back to me, and it's got like that little place in my heart that I think about it. I know some people say like it's just a guy being depressed for however many pages. I've come to realize I think that's maybe the kind of books I enjoy. The Three Dahlias is another murder mystery actually, and I did enjoy this more than The Mitford Secret, so I think potentially it was just The Mitford Secret that I didn't like and not murder mysteries as a whole. It felt less predictable, I think, and it was less like that obvious thing of, oh my god, everyone's hiding something, everyone has a secret, everyone could be the murderer, but they're being really obvious about it. Like, it felt less like that, and I appreciated the three different characters that we saw. I still didn't love it, honestly. It wasn't, I don't know that I'm gonna be reaching for any more murder mystery anytime soon. I think this was just okay. It was enjoyable. I might consider reading the next one potentially, but I'm not gonna rush to it, you know? No overwhelming criticisms of it, but no overwhelming like positives towards it either, you know? Just a bit of a, yeah, I read that and it was enjoyable kind of book. God, The Prison Healer feels like I read it ages ago. I probably did. I probably read it like, I don't know, maybe like 2-3 months ago at this point, so maybe not that long ago. I did actually end up quite enjoying this book, but again, there's more books in the series that I could have read and I haven't yet, which is a sign to me that like it's not top tier because I haven't come back to it or to continue the series. I feel like this is another book where the characters really held it up. The plot was okay. It was very, very typical of like YA fantasy. There's some kind of trial, main character somehow ends up taking part in this trial where anyone else would die, you know, that kind of thing. Very standard, but it was the characters that held up and their relationships with each other and how they looked out for each other. That was what made me enjoy it. I still don't know that I would say it was a nice day out, because it was just kind of meh, like enjoyably meh, but nothing to like rave about. So I think this was also just okay. The Yellow Wallpaper, going off my theme of people just being depressed for however many pages, this was also Six of Crows. Oh my god, this book. This is really short. It's like 30 pages again, I think, but it was so good, and it felt like so much like happened emotionally in those 30 pages, and I have never finished a book and been like, what has just happened, more than I did with this book. I was thrown. I was Googling, I was on Reddit, I was trying to find other people's interpretations of what happened. It was great. Really recommend it. Again, really short, so quite easy to read, but I had no idea what was going on. I think now I have an idea of what's going on, but again, it's just an interpretation. Yeah, really good. Just depressed people being depressed. That is my genre of book, apparently. Moving along, we have Midnight Sun. If you have been keeping up with my recent videos, you know that I did not like this book. Now, the question is, do we put it in the bin? Or is it just not for me, babes? My thought is we just put it in the bin. Look, I'm not going to go on a whole nother rant about Midnight Sun because I've already done that. However, someone did point something out to me in the comments of my video about Midnight Sun, and I'm really sorry, I can't remember who it was, but they said that actually having this whole book from his point of view actually took away something from the story rather than adding it. It was like part of the enjoyment of the book was you don't know what Edward's thinking, you don't know why he's reacting the way he is, and you're seeing it all from Bella's point of view, and adding this just actually kind of takes that enjoyment away. And especially the addition it was, I feel like it was disappointing, and I'd rather not have known what he was thinking and doing, because it's made me dislike him and realize how boring and borderline insane he is. I don't think that book needed to be written or published, is my honest opinion. I don't know why it was, frankly. I do know why it was. It was for money. I don't think it was necessary to the story. So I'm sorry, Midnight Sun's going in the bin. Our last classic, Wuthering Heights. God, how do I feel about Wuthering Heights? I enjoyed it. I was very angry at everyone in it the whole way through. But like not in the same way I was with Frankenstein. Like this was an enjoyable anger. I don't think it was quite Six of Crows though. It was very easy to read, and I did keep wanting to come back to it whenever I had to stop. And yeah, I was enjoyably angry. So I think it was a nice day out. Again, it really wasn't a nice day out. It was miserable, whiny, depressed day out, but it was an enjoyable experience for me anyway. Last 3 books. The Silence Factory. I immediately know this was not for me, babes. I did not particularly enjoy this book. I was actually quite disappointed by this book because it started quite enjoyable. It had quite a good premise. Again, historic fiction. I think this was Victorian. I love Victorian period shows, films, novels, whatever. It's a period that I like to see. But this book, although it was set there and it had those gothic Victorian vibes, I was so disappointed by it. There was no explanation for all the things that happened. And I know you might say, like, Nikki, there doesn't always need to be an explanation for everything that happens. Just let things be mysterious. But in this case, it just felt unsatisfying. It wasn't like, you know, like in the picture of Dorian Gray where you're like, how does that painting even do that? Like, how does that happen? Why has that happened? That's fine. That is the unexplained magic of that. Fine. I don't mind that because it doesn't detract from the story. This just was unsatisfying and didn't make sense to me when things weren't explained, and just left me feeling like I'd wasted my time, honestly. I wouldn't really recommend that book. I didn't like it. What Moves the Dead? This is my most recent read on this. I finished this like towards the end of June, so this is fairly fresh in my memory, and do you know what? I really liked this book. This is based on, or like a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, which is why I read that. And I read the author's note at the back and felt very similar, that they were saying like they wanted more of an expansion on that story. They liked it, but they wanted more of it, and they wanted to know like why things happened and see those characters a bit more. And this book did that really well, honestly. I really liked the take they took on it. It was very weird and creepy. Still had that like same horror-esque vibe, not like scary horror, but you know, it was creepy, that the original story had, but like it just expanded on it in a nice way. I really enjoyed it. I really want to read more by this author. I have another one of their books and I really would like to buy more because I think it was really, really good. So I think it's going in a nice day out. It's not quite Six of Crows. It didn't quite reach that level, but I did really, really enjoy it, very much so, and I think this probably will be an author that I read a lot of. These Violent Delights, I know, is just okay. I don't need to think on that anymore. It was enjoyable, however I can recognize it is not the best book. There were a lot of just parts of really awful writing, and I'm not saying that to be like mean. Awful writing that actually you had to stop for a minute and be like, how did that get in? I didn't enjoy the romance particularly. I mean, the romance, there wasn't really much of the romance, which was fine with me because I preferred the rest of the story. And the main love interest, I did not care for. I did not like him, but it was still somewhat enjoyable. And again, I've got the second book, but I haven't read it yet. So it was just okay. That's all I can say. It was not breathtaking, didn't wow me, but I still kind of had a good time and enjoyed myself, and will read the next one. So yeah, I think I'm happy with where everything is at the moment. The only thing I'm actually doubting, bizarrely, is Frankenstein. I'm wondering if it needs to move up a little bit. I am also slightly surprised by the spread of things, because when I was looking through like my list of all the books I've read over the past 6 months, there was quite a lot of low ratings. There's definitely more in the bin than there was last year. Last year, I think there was only 2 books that ended up in this like tier. It's been a good 6 months. I think that's what's surprising me. This is a nice spread of good days out. I'm very interested to see how this grows and changes with like the following 6 months of the year, and what's going to be added into it, and if things are going to get moved around based on different opinions of things that I do read. But that's where we're at for now. Thank you for sticking around and listening to me talk about these books and why I'm ranking them in these stupid categories. If you read any of these, I'd be interested to know if you would have ranked them similarly or different. Even if you like don't post on social media or anything, go do a tier ranking of the books you've read so far this year. It's really fun. There's something about a tier ranking that is very satisfying to me, and I really enjoy. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.